So what are we really doing here, you know, with our lives? What I'm doing is I'm trying to join the Angel Cartel, build a Cynabal, and get to Zarzak. Or 1, 2, 3, that's what I was doing until 11 episodes ago when I decided to throw myself this curveball. Tech 2 guns are going to be part of pretty much every Cynabal build that takes itself seriously. So I'm doing it. I'm officially adding build Tech 2 medium projectile weapons to our list of goals. At the time, that seemed like an absolutely insane proposition, building 4 medium Tech 2 guns. But I want to show you something. Look at this. 69 thermonuclear trigger units ready for delivery. Which means, behold, 4 650mm artillery cannons too, ready to be built. But I'm about to be the worst tease imaginable. I'm going to infuriate you. I'm not going to click this start button. It infuriates me too, if that's any consolation. See, here's the thing. We have the thermonuclear trigger units, the Morphite, the robotics, everything we need to build these 650mm artilleries. But we also have everything we need to build 14 more thermonuclear trigger units, and if we find more spatial attunement units, that number's only gonna go up. The thing is, if we build those Tech 2 650mm artillery cannons, then we're locked in. It is 650s on the Cynabal, there's no going back. But there are a bunch of other medium projectile weapons, and right now we're in a position where we could build any of them. And I still don't know for sure what the Cynabal fit's gonna look like. Let me show you what I've been thinking. I've been thinking about something like this. And it's not a terrible fit. It's not excruciatingly embarrassing, at least if you ignore the Tech 1 gyro stabilizers. But it definitely could be better. Would it be better with 720mm artillery? Probably, but then we'd have to eke out a bit more power grid. Would it be better with 425mm Tech 2 autocannons? Yeah, but then the rest of the fit would also look completely different. The thing is, we can't know for sure what this fit's going to look like until we know what modules we have available to us. If we were building the Cynabal today, it would probably end up looking like this, but we're not ready to build the Cynabal today because we still need a whole bunch of ISK to buy our reaction formulas and blueprints, and I don't want to build the guns and then get some amazing drop later that's going to make me want to change the whole fit. So we're going to hold off on building the guns right now, and I think we might also take some measures to maximize the chance of an amazing drop. Remember, when I say we still need a lot of ISK, I'm talking about 500 million ISK. And I have a new idea for how to maybe earn some of that. As we've been exploring around, I've been running the DED 1 of 10s, 2 of 10s, and 3 of 10s that we've found, and occasionally we've gotten some good drops out of them, but the truth is that those sites are not really getting us a lot of ISK. The bounties are terrible, and the overseer effects that they drop are worth a few 100,000 ISK each. But Thelma the Thorax is a powerhouse these days, and I'm pretty sure she could take on a DED 4 of 10. I think she could probably even take on a DED 5 of 10. And in those higher tier of DED sites, the overseer effects are worth a whole lot more, the bounties are a whole lot higher, and we run a solid chance of picking up some high-level Dead Space cruiser modules that we might want to put on the Cynabal. So today, if all goes well, we're going to find out just how far up the DED ladder a junkyard fit thorax can plausibly climb. This is Bill. Bill wants to build a Cynabal and join the Angel Cartel cause in Zarzak, but he's not making it easy on himself. Oh yeah, before we set off for Losec and start hunting down DED sites, I wanted to pop back into the industry menu. You may have noticed that I'm inventing and building a few things. I'm building another prototype cloaking device. Why am I doing that, you might ask? Well, the reason is because I want to build a Tech 2 cloaking device. I've wanted to from the start. That's why we bought the cloaking device blueprint. But I can't build an improved cloaking device 2 until I invent an improved cloaking device 2 blueprint, and I can't invent a cloaking device 2 blueprint without a prototype cloaking device 1 blueprint copy. And strangely enough, unlike every other blueprint that I'm aware of that we've worked with, copying a prototype cloaking device 1 blueprint actually requires ingredients. It requires data sheets, which you can just buy anywhere. Data sheets. And it requires 2 types of research databases. It requires these Creodon research databases, which I bought the blueprint for out in the forge when I happened to notice that we were in a system with a Creodon station. So these are ready for delivery. And it also requires these Issue Coney research databases, which I hadn't even noticed until I got back to Thera. I randomly picked up in that standard sleeper cache. The standard sleeper cache, it just gives and gives and gives. So now, finally, we're ready to copy this cloaking device blueprint, which means in an hour and a half, we'll be ready to try inventing a Tech 2 cloak blueprint. I'm so excited. Having the micro warp drive cloak trick available to us has made the prospect of traveling through Losec with expensive loot or with big slow ships like the Thorax so much less stressful. On a big slow ship like the Thorax, though, doing the micro warp drive cloak trick with a prototype cloaking device would be super sketchy. With the improved cloaking device 2, it is a whole different ball game. We'll just moonwalk through the gate camps, no worries at all. So I'm gonna spend a little bit of time poking around in Losec right now, I think, in Priscilla the Probe. And I'm gonna see if I can't scan down some DED 4 of 10s or 5 of 10s. But if I don't find any tonight, then when we hop back on the horse tomorrow, we might just have a cloaky Thorax waiting in the wings. Provisional Serpentis Outpost. Oh! Faction cruiser spawn. What do you have for me? Well, I guess I'm about to get faster. Oh. Okay, you know what? In the middle of this site, apply skill points. 3,000, yes. Now I'm gonna have to remember not to self-destruct this clone in the near future. But that's pretty exciting. How much faster exactly am I? Oh yeah, it's also a stat bonus. I forgot about that. That's actually quite nice for us. +3 to memory, I'll take it. And plus 0.6% to our maximum velocity. I seem to recall that Fiona the Catalyst with the micro warp drive went 1800 meters per second maximum before, and now it's 1812. Very good. Very good. Mid-grade snake. It's totally reasonable. So I found a Losec ghost site in Muinvan, and I'm going to try using a tactic this time that a few people have mentioned in the YouTube comments, but that I haven't really been using because it doesn't seem especially relevant to Bill, but there's absolutely no harm in trying it. In Losec, there's a good chance, almost 100% chance it seems, that the ghost site is going to have an extra can floating above. The can that we've been avoiding, because what's in it is that 200 million ISK capital construction chip that is useless to us. But if you are doing ghost sites for ISK and you're selling items on the market, that's the thing you're going to want most of all. But I've been told that when the NPCs come into the site and blow up all the cans, they don't blow up that can. And there's a minute or two before the site despawns after the NPCs leave. So what we're going to try doing is we're going to try dropping an on-grid perch as we land on the ghost site. And then when things get hairy, we'll warp out to the perch. And then from there, we'll see if we have time to warp back and hack that last can. I've never tried this before. We'll see how it goes. I'm pretty excited just to find a ghost site in general. They have been so good to us by and large. Now we do need to make sure that we don't drop this perch within targeting range or shooting range of the cans, because we don't want to get popped after running the ghost site. Okay, there's that top can. We're not going to go for it. We can go for this one. Burn over fast. Lock it up. One can down. Over at research tools, over to this one. Over at research tools, can we get to a third can? We're gonna try. Okay, we're not gonna go for the fourth can because I don't think, because the NPCs are gonna be here any second. Whatever, there's no harm in trying, right? Oh no, here they are. Okay, so now we activate our hardener. We warp to our perch. And we watch them blow up the cans. I don't have the cloak fit because it delays our targeting, especially that prototype cloak, but I would be surprised if these guys can target me out here at 800 kilometers. They have blown up all of the cans except for the top one. It actually worked. We can stop heating this now. I'm going to leave it on just on principle. Now the question is, what I've been told is that these NPCs will now warp off. The explosion is finished. The site is set to despawn, but this one can remains on grid. It seems pretty critical with this plan that you drop your perch bookmark on grid so that you can see when the NPCs warp off, because this can is going to despawn in a couple of minutes. We don't have much time here for this to work. If you just warp off to a safe and then like count to 20 in your head and warp back in, you could land while the NPCs are still here, or you could land after the can is despawned. I believe it can actually despawn while we're hacking it, so this is a time-sensitive hack. But honestly, the hacks in the ghost sites are usually not all that difficult. They give you a little bit of of a break because they know how stressful it is, I guess, and because failing the hack even once is so punishing. And there it is. So we got the electroneural signaler this time without giving up any of the other loot. I'm probably not going to bother most of the time because the truth is that 164 million-isk electroneural signaler is not worth 2 minutes of my time. But I bet it's worth 2 minutes of yours. So this is a good little trick, and thank you to everyone who mentioned it in the YouTube comments. I'm glad I got to share this with you. This is something I will definitely be remembering for the future, should I be playing on a character who's able to sell things to people who might want to build a shamash. I have to get off grid, but that's amazing. There are people. Losecnia Lupin is in system. And I'm pretty sure that they're combat probing me, or are about to be. But what did I just see in there? Oh! Pirelli A-Type 5MN. That's incredible. And another multi-spectrum. Pretty much the best drop you can get. Look at this drop combination. From a 3 of 10. Oh, I'm thrilled. Wow, what am I going to put this A-Type 5MN on? I don't really have a lot of frigates or destroyers that I really fly micro warp drives on that are combat fit. It would be silly to put it on Priscilla the Probe or Aaron the Atron. I know that running 3 of 10s wasn't the point out here, but still, that's 3.8 million-isk. in Overseer Effects. It took me 32 minutes to run that. 3.8 million plus the bounties is still going to come out to about the same as Ratting and Losec and a Destroyer. Plus, Ratting and Losec and a Destroyer doesn't get you this stuff. So I've been living it up out here in Solitude over the last 48 hours or so, having a blast in Fiona the Catalyst and Priscilla the Probe. This really is a delightful corner of Losec. But so far, I haven't yet taken any real steps towards the main thing I came out here to do, which is try and run Serpentis 5 of 10s in Thelma the Thorax. Thelma is still parked next door in Vevelonel, where I originally stashed her after coming out through the wormhole. The thing is, doing what I want to do in Thelma is going to require flying a lot of jumps around through Losec in a pretty hard to replace cruiser, and I've been loath to do that until I have the improved cloaking device 2. Now, the invention process for the cloaking device blueprint takes a while, but it might finally be done. So it's time to take the Pod Express back to Thera. And let's find out if this invention job was successful. 1 of 1 succeeded. Okay, now it's time to build a Tech 2 cloak. We've got the skills we need. We've got the prototype cloaking device 1. We've got the RAM. We need these Tech 2 components. And if my math is correct, hopefully, because this whole endeavor rests on it, by reprocessing those 2 Covert Ops cloaking devices that we got from PvP, we should get all of the Tech 2 components that we need. Reprocess. Industry tab. 2 hours. In 2 hours, we'll have an improved cloaking device 2. Wonderful. Now, reprocessing those 2 Covert Ops cloaking devices gave us enough of these Tech 2 components to build exactly 1 improved cloaking device 2, and I don't think we're ever going to build a second. So I do want to look and see if there's something else that we might want to build with these graviton pulse generators and these nanoelectrical microprocessors. So give me a moment. I'm going to be looking at a whole bunch of blueprints on EVREF and in-game. I have discovered something incredible. These photon microprocessors, they aren't really used to build anything that we are likely to want to build, but if they are reprocessed, they give a whole whack of crystalline carbonide, which is used to build a whole lot of very interesting things, including particle accelerator units, which have as their only other 2 ingredients, fullerenes, which we already have, and hypersynaptic fibers, which we already have, which means we can build them without doing any reactions. And a particle accelerator unit is used to build all kinds of Tech 2 hybrid guns, Tech 2 blasters, Tech 2 railguns, and also Tech 2 Galente drones. And in fact, each Hobgoblin 2 only requires a single particle accelerator unit. And so, particle accelerator blueprint, 5 million ISK. Hobgoblin 1 blueprint, 250,000 ISK. We'll just reprocess these, hop over to the industry tab, start a few particle accelerator units building, and we've already got a Hobgoblin 2 blueprint inventing right now. It'll be done shortly after improved cloaking device 2, and maybe we'll be able to head back out to Solitude with not only a cloak, but a full flight of Hobgoblin 2 drones. That would be incredible. It would be so good, specifically for the Serpentis DED 5 of 10s we're planning to run. This little regroup back in Thera may have been far more productive than I was expecting. Our improved cloaking device 2 has finished building, and in a little more than an hour, 4 Hobgoblin 2s will be finished building as well. When combined with that 1 lonely Hobgoblin 2 we looted from that Heron way back in Mohr, way back in the day, we're gonna have a full flight of 5 Serpentis killing Tech 2 drones to bring out with us to Solitude. Hobgoblins are finished building. Let's get this stuff out to Solitude. Our closest Thera exit was 14 jumps away in Ajna in Iridia. But with our new Tech 2 hyperspatials, we will cover that distance in no time at all. $200 AU warp across Thera, 14 jumps through Losec. It has been 9 minutes since I undocked in the Gravitation Laboratory. Everyone raise a glass for my new best bro in the world, Hyperspatial Velocity Optimizer 2. So when I'm flying ships around Losec and Nullsec through areas that I know are dangerous, jumping gates blind because I don't have a scout, there's a word I use a lot. I often talk about how my ships are replaceable. That's one of the nice side effects of building everything from Blueprint Originals. If we lose a catalyst, we can have another one in the oven along with a full fit in moments. In fact, we don't even have to build another catalyst because we still have 6 of the 13 we accidentally built left kicking around in Thera and Minar. But a thorax hull is always a little bit harder to replace, simply because of how much more minerals it takes to build a cruiser than it does to build a frigate or destroyer. But even when we lost our first thorax, poor Thomas, I used the word replaceable. Replaceable is not a word I would use today for Thelma here. Valued at 291 million ISK, Thelma is kitted out with Corellum's C-type and A-type modules, meta damage control, of which we only have a couple, 5 Tech 2 Hobgoblins in the drone bay, which we can't replace until we find another source of crystalline carbonite, which I would really rather not react up. If we lose Thelma, we can build another thorax. We can fit it up very similarly with T1 modules, but the performance difference between what we have here and what a T1 fit would give us is huge. And in fact, within that gap is probably the threshold for doing what I want to do right now. So I'm going to do my very best not to lose Thelma here, flying around in Solitude. But with a 5.17 second align and a pretty hostile set of locals, I've been hunted, by the way, just in the last day by an Orthrus, a Confessor, and a Jaguar. We're going to have to be on our toes, and we're going to be in so much peril every time we jump a gate. 5.17 seconds align, we're just never getting out of there. And that's why Thelma has sat parked here in Velvelinel ever since we brought her out from Thera. I was too scared to jump even a single gate in a 291 million ISK Dead Space Thorax. But now, we have a travel fit. With a micro warp drive and a Tech 2 cloak, it's a whole different ballgame. Thelma's going to be really hard to catch on gates now. With the T2 cloak, even a big old cruiser is going to be insta-warp coming out of the micro warp drive cloak trick. And in case everything goes wrong, we also have 5 Hornet EC300s. So it's time, finally, to undock Thelma and take her for a spin around Solitude, looking for Serpentis dens. So we're looking for Serpentis dens because just as Serpentis hideaways and refuges, each time you run one, have a chance of spawning an expedition to a DED 3 of 10, each time you run a Serpentis den, there's a chance of it spawning an expedition to a DED 5 of 10, which is what we want to try and do. The other nice thing about the dens is, unlike the hideaways and refuges, oh, there's one, they actually give you a pretty decent sum of bounties just from running the anomaly itself. Now, with both of our enduring tracking computers active, our range with these 250mm railguns is 37 kilometers off, is 37 kilometers optimal, 59 kilometers fall off. So we're going to be able to peg these guys off pretty quick, doing catalyst level damage out to pretty much our full lock range. The nice thing about that too is that we're going to be sitting here a good 50 kilometers off of the site. So not only will the NPCs have trouble hitting us, but also anyone who warps in, unless they've combat probed us, is not likely to land within scram range of us. That is going to help us stay safe. We're going to stay aligned out, of course, as well. Now, I'm running this site with the micro warp drive and cloak fit. That's probably unnecessarily cautious. If I find a system with multiple dens in it, I'm definitely going to refit to the Afterburner 5 railguns combat fit and run those dens nice and quick. But for the moment, well, we're just sort of proof of concepting this. I want to make sure that we're able to run this anomaly even in our travel fit. That will make it much easier for us to bounce around, knock them off quickly, and also still get out of dodge if someone does ambush us mid-sight run. I should not be aligning to that safe, though. I should be aligning to this safe, so I don't have to be flying towards these guys. We can pick these frigates off at 50 kilometers, no problem. But the flip side is that at 20 kilometers, we start having trouble hitting them. The tracking on these guns is not their biggest selling point. Oh, and I forgot to launch my Tech 2 drones. They're going to help me clear out these frigates and destroyers very nicely. I took a moment to, I took a day to train up drone durability to 3, which is not a skill that I had before. We're going to be watching the hit points on our Hobgoblin 2s very carefully, because losing one of them is going to make me shed a tear. One den down. There is another den in system. That one took me about 8 minutes to run. I'm going to dock up at this station, refit to my non-travel fit, try loading antimatter, and see how much more quickly we can run the next one. Den number 2. With the antimatter, we're going to stick closer, like 28,000 kilometers, 28,000 meters, sounds about right. I think this is going to be much, much faster. Second den down in maybe 2/3 the time. That was pretty darn fast. But now we're gonna have to refit to the cloak micro warp drive and move on. Because though the 3 of 10 has both the hideaway and the refuge that can spawn it, the 5 of 10 has only the den. This does vary by faction. For some factions, the refuge, for example, actually spawns the 5 of 10. But for Serpentis, it's hideaway, refuge, 3 of 10, den, 5 of 10. So it's time to go back on the den hunt. Well, goddamn. So here's the situation. I was just quickly knocking off a couple of hideaways while I waited for my mobile depot to anchor, thinking, you know, if I can get a DD 3 of 10, I'll happily run that too. And then, as I finished clearing the hideaway, I recalled my drones and I warped out. But I didn't wait for my drones to get back. I noticed what I was doing. I noticed the mistake I'd made before I actually left grid. And I tried. I was hammering the stop ship button to try and stop the warp, but it was too late. And then I tried quickly to create an on-grid bookmark, but it was too late. I was already off grid. So my drones are still sitting there in an empty point in deep space that used to be an anomaly. The anomaly, of course, despawned as soon as I finished completing the site. So there's now no way for me to get back to where those drones are. And this is annoying, even if you're buying your drones off the market and you're at a few million ISK, but it is heartbreaking for us because those Hobgoblin 2s are nigh irreplaceable. Now, drones that are abandoned in space, they will eventually despawn, but unlike wrecks, which despawn in a matter of hours, drones abandoned in space will stay there for at least a few days. So the question is, how can we find them? The only way to find a grid like that doesn't have an anomaly or a signature added anymore, but does have drones on it, is with combat scanner probes. Now, the upside to all this is because those drones are in a section of space that's hard to get to, we don't have to worry too much about somebody else scooping them on us. There's no NPCs on grid to kill the drones, and there's no way for a player to randomly land on that grid and scoop them. Any player who wants to get those drones is also going to have to combat probe them down. So our drones, our little friends, are safe at the moment, just waiting for us. And the question at hand is, will we be able to get back to them before somebody else does? Now, we do have combat scanner probes, Sisters combat scanner probes, and a Sisters expanded probe launcher in Thera. But our Thera hole is like 15 to 20 jumps away and on the verge of closing. There is a faster way for us to become combat probe capable without flying all that way back into Thera. And as of this moment, everything else is on hold. Our sole mission right now is rescuing our 5 poor Hobgoblin 2s, showing them how much we really do care. Let's go. Ended Probe Launcher 1 blueprint, 60,000 ISK. Combat Scanner Probe 1 blueprint, 5 million ISK. Status update. It turns out that building combat scanner probes, unbeknownst to me, requires strontium clathrates, an ice product. And we do have some spare strontium clathrates kicking around from when we did our ice mining, but all of our strontium clathrates are in Mohr, which is 27 jumps away. And the clock is ticking. Every minute that goes by increases the chances that some rando in a buzzard is going to pass through system, see 5 Hobgoblin 2s on D-scan and be like, yeah, I can give those guys a new home. I mean, from a moral perspective, I prefer that. I'd rather see them adopted than just left there until they go rogue. But those are our drones. We worked so hard to build them. A full flight of Hobgoblin 2s for Bill is an absolute triumph, and I'm not yet willing to give up on that. We are going to Thera. I am finally ready to combat probe Evev and figure out where my 5 poor babies are hiding. Come home, little guys. Come home. Oh my goodness. There they are. There they are. Well, let's get you home to Mommy Thelma. Don't ever scare me like that again. Little rascals. Well, the anomaly I accidentally abandoned my Hobgoblin 2s in was a Serpentis hideaway. And that hideaway, for all of the trouble that it caused me, did spawn an escalation to a Serpentis 3 of 10. So at this point, I feel like we might as well go run it and see, maybe maybe it was worth it. I highly doubt it, but there's only one way to find out. It was worth it. Well, we haven't yet succeeded in running a single 5 of 10, which is what we came out here to Solitude to do. But what we have succeeded in doing is making Fiona the belt-ratting catalyst absolutely bonkers. I don't know if there's something better I should be doing with this Corelli A-Type 5MN micro warp drive and this Corelli A-Type small armor repairer, but for now, I can't really think of a better place for them than on Fiona. This does, of course, change the basic shape of the fit because we've been running an afterburner before, but the main reason that we were running an afterburner instead of a micro warp drive was because of the signature bloom, but also because a micro warp drive, even when it's not running, limits your capacitor so much that it made it virtually impossible for us to run the small armor repairer. But a dead space micro warp drive is a whole different beast. than a meta microwarp drive. Look at this. The 5MN quad lift restrained microwarp drive, which is basically the best microwarp drive we had access to before, gives you a 505% speed boost, but it reduces your total capacitor by 20% and blooms your signature by 450%. The Corelli A-Type 5MN not only makes you faster with the 518% velocity bonus, it also blooms your signature less, but most significantly, it reduces your capacitor by only 3%. A 3% capacitor penalty versus a 20% capacitor penalty is a world of difference. With the Corelli A-Type 5MN, as long as it's not running, we can essentially run our armor repair as though we didn't have a microwarp drive fit at all. It's fantastic. And now having a microwarp drive doesn't really let us take on any targets that we couldn't take on before, although it does make us a little bit less scared of some of those elite frigates and elite cruisers that do try and kite you. What the microwarp drive mostly does is it lets us get to targets much more quickly, especially when we land on a belt, for example, and all of the rats are 50 kilometers off. We're going to cover that distance so much more quickly now. And when you combine that with the hyperspatials that I fit to Fiona, allowing us to get from belt to belt and from gate to belt much more quickly, I think our ISK per hour belt ratting in Fiona has just taken a massive leap forward. But we're getting sidetracked. I didn't come out here to belt rat. We already know that belt ratting is a good source of ISK. I came out here to find out if 5 of 10s are also a good source of ISK, maybe a better source of ISK. So it's time to get serious. Oh, this is it. This is our first moment to test out the microwarp drive cloak trick on Undocking the Thorax. Successful. Finally. All right, Serpentis Corporation's hydroponics site. Here we come.